Welcome back to the Triple Threat Podcast. My name is William and Ishan, and today we've got some pretty exciting topics to cover today. We're going to break down the Floyd Mayweather fight, the Julio Jones trade, and we're going to get into some of the second and the last first round matchups. So let's get straight into it with the biggest news of the evening, the Floyd Mayweather fight. Now this fight made a lot of news, a lot of headlines, and most importantly, a lot of money. So let's get straight into it. Ishan, were you watching the fight last night?
I was. We were able to stream it, and I haven't streamed on Instagram Live for people like Will to join. You're on the live, right?
Yeah, I was. I joined for a sec. I joined.
But it was a little underwhelming to say the least. Logan got tired after round 2, which is what I was expecting. Floyd has that agility, he has the quickness, he has that defensive ability that he's made a reputation off of. And so, after just dodging all of Logan's barrages of attacks, Logan got pretty fatigued, and it resorted to hugging. A lot of hugging.
Well, that first round, Logan really dumped a lot of energy into it, and you could really tell that he was really going at it at the beginning, kind of like you saw with that with the McGregor fight in 2017. But even when Mayweather was getting pummeled by Logan in that first round, he didn't look like he got hurt at all. I mean, his defensive technique is so perfect that you could really see that when he was getting those jabs thrown at him, when he was getting those shots to the head, he had his arms up perfectly, and he just wasn't phased at all by any of the attacks Logan had. And when I saw that, I said, "Oh, it's over for Logan," as if it wasn't already. But no matter what Logan could do, Floyd was just too good defensively. And then at the end of the round 8, Floyd Mayweather looked like he looked in round 1. So just that experience, that fatigue, that endurance that Mayweather has really set in. But I just want to give credit to Logan. Man, hanging 8 rounds with Floyd, and people are going to talk about the clinching a lot. And I've don't put all of it on Logan. Mayweather was hugging some too. I mean, Mayweather was clinching too, because Mayweather was trying to keep it close because of that size advantage, trying to get up in there close. And then Logan that was his. Whenever Mayweather got close, he was like, "All right, you're not gonna punch me because I'm just gonna clinch you." And he did that against KSI in his first 2 fights. And I mean, it worked for him. He stayed upright. He put on a pretty good show for us. I didn't pay for it, so obviously I think I enjoyed the fight more than the average person who paid $50 for that. But anyways, man, racks were made. And then, did you watch any of the Chad Ochocinco fight?
I didn't watch it. I just saw that he got dropped.
Yeah, he had 40 seconds left. But man, I think I liked what he did. I think that if he can keep going, man, that'll be really exciting to see what he can do. But anyways, what's next for Logan? Because he's earned himself a spot against a legit boxer. Maybe not a legit boxer, but maybe a legit MMA fighter. So I think he's earned himself some opportunities here. He didn't make a fool of himself at all. He held his own, and holding your own against Floyd Mayweather is something that not a lot of people have done.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that he'll definitely have some opportunities. Definitely not as profitable as this fight, but I think some boxers, I could see him definitely going into MMA more with his more like attack style and less technique, but relying on the athleticism and size and that ability to attack when needed. I could definitely see him taking up some MMA fights. But you know what? Logan Paul, he held his own. Even Floyd was pleasantly surprised. So I think that while Floyd, I feel like round by round probably won the fight, even though there's no judges, I think Logan definitely made a name for himself in boxing.
Yeah, Logan won by just getting in the ring, man. So
everyone's a winner.
Floyd's winning no matter what. I mean, Floyd could have lost the fight. If Floyd lost, it would have been a big deal. But there was no way Logan could have lost that fight. If he got dropped, he makes it rack. I mean, there's no way Logan could have lost that. Just by being in the ring, he's a winner. And I think that I may not like the Paul brothers, especially Jake. I'm fine with Logan, but I like seeing them perform because they're given a platform that's interesting and bringing a lot of attention to boxing, and I wouldn't be really talking about boxing without them. So I
Yeah,
think
for sure.
that I'll always be cheering for them because as long as they're winning, this show keeps going on. Because if they lose, I mean it's over. Like as soon as Jay loses, who's gonna want to fight him? I mean,
Hmm.
the show is gonna be over. But anyway, it's a good fight. I thought that while there's a lot of clinching and there wasn't a lot of action, but like Logan was throwing. He was throwing punches. I mean, he may not have been very accurate at the punches, but he had just as much contact as Mayweather did, albeit on a lot more punches. But he he did a pretty good job. He credit to Logan Paul. But let's get into the real news stories of today. Um, I'll let you let you take the lead on this one. Julio Jones traded to the Tennessee Titans. If you were with us on Saturday, you would have thought this never would have happened. So, Ishan, take it away. What do you think about the Julio Jones trade?
Man, it's really sad to lose a franchise player like that because I've been like Julio came to the Falcons when I was in second grade. So from second grade to now, I basically grew up watching this man grow into the star that he's been. So it's definitely a big loss for the Falcons, for the fan base, for the city, but it had to happen. He was aging, the contract wasn't working out, but at the same time, I wish they handled the situation better. Arthur Smith says that he wants to win. The Kyle Pitts selection was kind of a win now move, and then you go and trade away arguably your best player. Yes, no, your best player. It's a little I'm a little unsure about the direction that the Falcons are going in. And so I feel like this season will be one of those 4 to 7 win seasons where we're not Jacksonville or New York bad, but we're nowhere near the playoffs. So I think this trade signifies a new era for Atlanta where we're not quite rebuilding, but we're definitely not in contention for anything.
Yeah, and that's just a really interesting direction. And the fact about the Kyle Pitts selection really exemplifies that lack of direction this team has. Because my philosophy on building a team is if you're not competing for a Super Bowl, you should be rebuilding. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to remember who came third place in the 2003 season. You're going to remember who won the Super Bowl that year. You're only gonna know who won it all. So my philosophy is, yeah, sure, it's good for revenue to be making the playoffs, having a good product in the field, but if you're not contending, you need to be rebuilding so you can contend because that's the end goal in the sport. And the Falcons, they're nowhere near contending, even if they have win now moves, even if they had Julio and Kyle Pitts and all the assets they had, they were not close to making it to an NFC Championship game or anything like that. So I think this team should have recognized that they're not going to have a top 4 selection unless they rebuild. So either they use that top 4 selection they had to take a quarterback, which they had plenty of good options before. They had Mac Jones or Justin Fields. I mean, they had a lot of good options on the board at 4. So they should have either made a coherent move in the draft and with Julio or a coherent and cohesive move with Julio in the draft, which they didn't. So rather than talk about the Falcons because they're going to be less interesting going forward, let's talk about the Titans real quick because what they were a top 3 offense the past 2 seasons, and at times they've been the number 1 most explosive offense. And although Tannehill may not be great at throwing the deep ball, I think it was 2 seasons ago he had 100% catch accuracy on deep balls. He has been really, really great as a facilitator at the quarterback position, and he's really thrived off play action with Derrick Henry. So when you bring this team together the way it's built, they have a great offense. I know Johnny Smith was a big loss, but he wasn't a big play in their offense, so Anthony Ferguson can probably step in pretty well. Their offensive line should get healthy again. Taylor Lewan should be coming back. And I know they lost their first-round pick, Isaiah Wilson, but he didn't play at all last season, so 3 snaps, I believe. So that shouldn't be a huge loss for them. If only they used that on an actually good pick. Their defense is looking solid. They've got some decent pieces on that defensive line. Mainly Jeffrey Simmons, who's becoming a great player, a great draft pick. They have some good corners out there. Chris Fulton. They just drafted Caleb
Caleb.
Farley. So they've got Jayon Brown in the middle, who I'm a big fan of. They've got some good pieces that this team can build around. And their offense will be very explosive this season. I just think that Julio is definitely a win now move. And I don't see the Titans contending in 4 or 5 years' time, just with the way this roster is constructed, because the youth isn't there, the quarterback is aging. Derrick Henry's not going to have that sustained performance for that much longer, considering the nature of his position and his play style. So I think this fit made a lot of sense. My only problem is that they lost their most important coach in Arthur Smith, who arguably was the reason for that team's offensive success. Because even LaFleur wasn't a great coordinator for that system. He was a below average offense when LaFleur was in charge there. So Arthur Smith was really, really important for that offense. And I just wonder how that whole system is going to change and vary with the new offensive coordinator. And I know they've got a lot of talent, but it's still hard as a coach to bring that talent together. And we've seen that consistently with a lot of these teams, like the Browns, for example, were pretty pitiful until Kevin Stefanski. And even Kevin Stefanski's not the greatest offensive coordinator in my opinion, because a lot of his scheme was Kubiak in Minnesota. So we'll just have to see how it plays out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that once again, defense, while it's young, we haven't seen that much production there. So I think that's definitely going to be a flaw, especially in an AFC where in the playoffs, you'd be going through Kansas City or Buffalo, basically. And then, once again, offensively, there's not too sustainable, but I think that people don't give Ryan Tannehill the credit where it's due. And this definitely has the potential to be, or should be, a top 5 offense, at least this year and maybe the next. But AJ Brown is excited.
No, his campaigning certainly paid off well. It'll be interesting to see what number he changes to after Julio comes, because he's presumably going to take number 11. Yeah. But yeah, it's down to Todd Downing and the rest of this offensive staff to bring this team together. They should still have the same identity. They should know Arthur Smith's not going to just... His play calls might leave, but the players have played under him, and they understand what he did. So it shouldn't be too huge of a loss for them. So they're definitely the best team in that division. The Colts are really close behind them, but with the uncertainty with their offensive skill positions, just you look at the discrepancy between Tannehill, Brown, Julio, Henry, and then even some of the other guys, Adam Humphries. Like, that's a really good offensive core versus Paris Campbell, Carson Wentz, Jonathan Taylor, who I think is really good, top 5 running back in my opinion. T.Y. Hilton and Michael Pittman. I mean, there's just a big discrepancy between that, and their defenses are. Colts are probably better, but
Colts are definitely better.
They're definitely better, but coaching's probably better for the Titans on the defensive side. I think Vrabel's a better coach than Eberflus, but their defense is kind of similar in the fact they've got a couple of good players and then a couple of role players stepping up. But the Colts had no edge rushers until the draft. Justin Houston was a big loss for them. I don't know why they haven't re-signed him. And their cornerbacks are a little bit suspect, but I think their defenses are a little closer than you might think this season.
Yeah.
But you go ahead.
We'll have to see. I'll probably give the Titans a nod by 1 game, I'd say, but both teams are definitely playoff teams in my eyes. So
for sure.
Especially now that there are 7 playoff spots, I think that both should be able to sneak in, especially since besides playing each other twice, you're going up against Jacksonville twice and you're going up against Houston twice. So that should be 4 free wins right there.
So let's get into the playoffs, because we had some interesting games yesterday. We had the 1 o'clock game. We had, we should probably go with the game that happened chronologically first, the Brooklyn-Milwaukee game, right?
Yeah, Brooklyn-Milwaukee happened first. And this was a really fun game to watch, in my opinion. Not everyone loved it, especially towards the end of the game, but these are two very evenly matched teams, especially now that Harden aggravated. I don't think he like pulled it, but he aggravated his hamstring.
I think his tightness is hamstring.
Yeah, his tightness, but he's out. He's out of game too. So we will need to see a lot of stepping up from guys like Blake Griffin, Joe Harris, Nick Claxton, Mike James especially, who will provide that burst of scoring at the two guard or at the point. Kyrie shifts over to the two guard, or stays as two guard, and then Bruce Brown to provide a little bit of extra scoring, but that defense and intensity and hustle that he normally brings. So they really got to step up. The Bucks went like 5 for 29 from three. Jeff Teague was completely selling, but they still managed to keep it a close game. And I think that with Nicholas Claxton as your best interior defender, arguably, Giannis is just going to be dominating from the interior. He still shot 2 for 5 from three, but his 34 definitely came from the paint, and he really needs to hit his free throws. I think that's going to be one of the biggest X factors of the series, where you're going to have to foul Giannis because you don't want easy buckets every time. And if he just hits his free throws, it's basically pick your poison. Oh, does he go 2 for 2 from the line? Or do we let him just dominate in the paint? So we'll have to see how Brooklyn approaches that defensively. For Milwaukee, on defense, I would say to just pay closer attention to the role players. Blake Griffin had 18, Joe Harris had 19, Claxton and Brown had 4 and 6, which are not that great, but they have other skill sets. Like Claxton's a great passer for his position, and then Mike James had 12. So try to keep it to where of the 5 guys, maybe one is scoring in double figures, because then, yeah, you let Kyrie go off for 30, you let Durant go off for 40, but 2 guys now, especially when they're down a superstar, are not going to be able to carry the team against a very, very talented Bucks team. And then Middleton, man, 13 points, just not going to cut it. Chris Middleton needs to step up as the established secondary creator, and when games get close, he's got to be the closer, because your closer has to be a perimeter threat. Giannis is obviously not there. He'll give you 34 from the interior, which is great, but when there are 2 minutes left on the clock, the paint gets crowded, Middleton is there for an open shot. He can't be giving you an inefficient 13. It's got to be an efficient 20 to 25, basically every game to stop the Nets. And then the Bucks also need to utilize their size. Giannis, who is their small forward, power forward, is taller than Blake Griffin, who's going to be playing center for the Nets now. Or yeah, who's starting at center right now. So, using the size defensively, using their length on defense, and then using their size to dominate on the interior on offense, like how they did in Game 1, will be crucial for them. But my conclusion, I still got the Nets in 7, since Harden's going to come back in the later games, which will definitely matter. But this could go either way.
Yeah, I think that you make a good point there. And then I wanted to talk a little bit more about how you guard Giannis and that philosophy of letting that one player take over the game, have 30, 40 points. I mean, exactly right. I mean, Claxton, yeah, he's a solid player. He's athletic. He's got solid height, but he's not going to be able to contain Giannis at all. So why not just let him go off and let the other players do what they can do? Because we saw Chris Middleton clearly wasn't up to the task. Jrue Holiday, I mean, he can score a lot, but there's been issues with his consistent scoring and his efficiency at times. So just let Giannis go off. And then someone who I was really impressed with was Blake Griffin. I think he had 14 rebounds and 4 made threes?
He had 5 threes, which was just as much as the Bucks.
I mean,
18 points, 14 rebounds.
Seeing him cook from 3-point land was pleasantly surprising.
Definitely.
I think that, I don't know if it was Joe Harris giving him some pointers or anything, but man, he has looked a lot better since coming to Brooklyn. I think he's really accepted his role. And
mentality thing too.
Yeah, because he's hustling. He's being the heart of that team. So not being that lazy player he was in Detroit, kind of just coasting, understanding that they were an 8 seed or just fighting for the playoffs, no ambition. Coming to Brooklyn really changed who he is, and I really thought that it's been great watching Blake Griffin. So I think that this team, they've got the ability to win without James Harden or Durant or Irving, whoever gets hurt, and without Harden now. I mean, this team should be plenty talented to get past the Bucks, regardless, especially with the one win advantage already. So I think that this team really looks like the front runner to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I think so too, and I personally think that the Bucks are playing like the second best team in the NBA behind Brooklyn. But like I wouldn't fully discount the Bucks. They're not like Dallas. They're not going to allow a heliocentric offense. They know that the heliocentric offense, the last 2 playoffs against the Heat and against the Raptors, was just very ineffective. So I think that they're going to make sure that guys like Bryn Forbes, Bobby Portis step up. And I guess speaking of a heliocentric offense, let's jump to Dallas, because they got $26 million in cap next season, and they got to do a lot of retooling and a lot of working, because Luka, man, he was fatigued. I just want to take a look at these stats. Luka Doncic's stats by quarter in the first round. He is first quarter 12.1 points in the quarter on 65% true shooting. Second quarter 10.1 points on 73.1% true shooting. Third quarter 7.7 points on 47.1% true shooting. And then fourth quarter, when he is supposed to be your closer, your guy to finish it off, he's too tired. 5.4 points on an abysmal 40.1% true shooting. And then looking on on-off stats, in the 52 minutes where Luka is off of the where Luka's on the bench, the Mavs have a net rating of negative 33.4 points. So they really got to utilize their cap, and I think you got to trade Porzingis. Shot selection was not up to par. He's unhappy with the team. Rick Carlisle, rightfully so, did the right move in not allowing Kristaps to get in the paint and take his inefficient paint shots. But just for reference, there are guys like John Collins, who will be free agents, Oladipo, which I don't really love, Mike Conley will be there, DeMar DeRozan, Chris Paul is going to resign in Phoenix, but Kyle Lowry is going to be there, Spencer Dinwiddie, Dennis Schroeder, Duncan Robinson, which I think would be really good if they can get him for cheap. Even Lauri Markkanen taking over that role for Kristaps. Norman Powell. They got to re-sign Tim Hardaway Jr., Evan Fournier, Gary Trent. There's a plethora of options. There's a plethora of scoring options. And Dallas really needs to look at what Atlanta has done. They have their star, Luka and Trey, both elite scorers, but both offer another dimension of elite playmaking. And I would say that Luka and Trey are the top 2 playmakers in the league right now. So getting a second star that really showcases Luka's playmaking and allows him to rest up a little bit will be beneficial. Bogdanovic has completely changed the team. Collins' spacing completely changed the team. Even Capella in the pick and roll has completely changed the team, and it has allowed Trey to play so much better. So definitely retool the roster, Dallas. Mark Cuban, I know you always listen to the show, but take some notes, man. You got some flexible money. You have some trade pieces. I think there are some teams that can definitely benefit from Kristaps. The Lakers are a team that come to mind for me that could use the spacing. So,
I mean, the Mavs got to go all in, man, because they only have a couple years left of this rookie contract on that, and Luka's already playing MVP level basketball. So,
individually, he had probably the best season. He probably the best individual season out of anyone in the league this year. But Dallas, just as a team, couldn't cut it.
Yeah, they just got to build a complementary roster around him. I don't think that he'll make it to free agency just because of the success the Hawks have had. but John Collins would be a very good fit there.
He'd be an excellent fit.
Just with that vision that Luka has, he'd play almost an exact same role that he does in Atlanta. And I think that he could be a very valuable asset. I just don't see him leaving Atlanta given the team's success and what that would mean in terms of a fan base. Just losing someone that popular would not go down well, even if it would be best business wise in terms of your future cap flexibility. But I think that would be a great fit. But you really gotta have someone that complements him in the backcourt as well. He's gotta have his partner in crime. He's gotta get his bogey, because you've really seen. And we'll talk about the Hawks in a second, but when you have those complementary assets, you maximize the team's efficiency, and you can really maximize that ceiling. Because yes, you need two superstars to win the league. That's just a fact. But you need players that complement that roster. So the Mavs have got to find their second superstar. Kristaps wasn't it, and now they have to rebuild. And keep in mind the construction of an ideal team. I think you look at the Suns, you look at the Hawks as an ideal example of what it means to build a complementary team around two superstars. You can even look at the Clippers, for example. The Clippers have done a solid job of building a roster around Paul George and Kawhi. It's not as ideal as the Suns and the Hawks are, but it's a pretty solid group around them, and it really allows Paul George and Kawhi to flourish.
Yeah, for sure. But I will say, as an offense, LA played really good. Luke Kennard played really well from three. He stepped up. The wings looked more cohesive. And I think that if they continue what they did on offense, not giving Kawhi the entire load, they can definitely beat Utah.
So let's move on to the Hawks real quick. So this was a fun game, 1 o'clock yesterday. And unlike Giannis, Joel was hitting his free throws. He was hitting those. I think he was 14 of 15.
Yeah, Joel played great. He looked a little vulnerable at times. There were times where he was grabbing onto his knee, but he looked like the same Joel I'm used to seeing. So that is going to be really tough to face up against. And his perimeter ability will definitely be a challenge for Capella. And hopefully if Capella, lives up somewhat to, or can guard him somewhat on the perimeter, then that's, oh my God, Capella's a crack then. But let's kind of talk about this. Tale of two halves. First half, Philly's bench was god-awful. They're getting outscored. They had like 5 turnovers in the span of 10 minutes. Atlanta capitalized on the fast breaks. We saw some great action from Bogey, John Collins, obviously Trae Young. And then their Phillies defense, they played a lot of drop coverage, which basically means pick and roll for Trae, which he thrives in, obviously, and then floaters. Trae was hitting floater after floater after floater, and that's one of the strongest parts of his game that you got to be able to neutralize. And then, as I said, secondary creation is so important, and Dallas has to take notes because Bogdanovich and Collins were just on their game. Then second half, the fans, I hated the Knicks fans, and I still dislike Philadelphia fans in all sports, especially Eagles fans. I will punch an Eagles fan, but I hate them almost as much as Saints fans. But
not quite as much. You gotta hate the Eagles fans.
Yeah. You know what? I'll give you one today. But the fans stayed in it. They contributed for sure. They provided a great atmosphere that allowed the 76ers to kind of lift their spirits up and get back in the game, because they definitely could have just given up. But their biggest adjustments were on defense. They utilized a lot of traps, a lot of double teams, and that stops Trae from really just scoring in the paint from floaters and even from the perimeter. And that led to more secondary production from guys like Bogey and Collins and Capella. And then Kevin Huerter definitely had some shots that should have gone in. There were times where he looked kind of clueless. He was stingier on defense, but on offense, I expected a lot more efficiency from him. So he definitely has to fix up a little bit. And then once again, back to the Sixers defense, they utilized their length to stop the perimeter attack. They utilized their double teams to stop Trae Young, and then that length also jumped a lot of passing lanes and allowed for Tobias Harris to go in for some easy dunks and threes towards the end of the game. And then, yeah, Embiid, second half, really kicked it into gear, had a great half. So, Atlanta, they did all the right things in the first half and then all the wrong things in the second half. They should have adjusted better on offense. They should have been less lazy on defense. And so, Atlanta needs to realize that not every game is a walk in the park. This team is a clear upgrade from the Knicks, and that they will fight to the very last minute, which is something that the Knicks did not really do.
And I think one of the important things that the Sixers did, what Doc Rivers did, was Matisse Thybulle. I thought he did a really good job coming in. He only played 18 minutes, but that was really predominantly in the second half. He came in the second half, and I thought he did as good a job as you can on Trae Young as you can. I thought he did an impressive job coming in. I don't think the second half was as bad as you might think it was as a Hawks fan. It was mainly that fourth quarter in that inbound game.
It was the fourth
It was the inbounds. Because they were sloppy on inbound plays. And they just weren't getting anyone open. They were taking rough passes, and they were forcing turnovers and causing easy points for Ben Simmons and for Joel and for Tobias. And then Seth Curry is playing a great job as a spot-up shooter. What they did was just hand the game to them. I mean, you can take the Hawks out of Atlanta, but you can't take Atlanta out of the Hawks, man. It's that Atlanta DNA choking. So what they've got to do is they've got to understand how to play with the lead, because they were playing a little bit too much of the quick, fast-paced offense, and they need to just slow it down, use the shot clock, get an open shot, play that great passing offense they have, get good looks to Herter and Bogey, because, man, Herter and Bogey are incredible. Just watching the game.
Bogey more.
Bogey is the more the facilitator. Herter just kind of stands at the corner and just hits the shot when it comes to him. Bogey's kind of facilitating and doing a great job at spot-up shooting and creating his own shot. Man, he was electric. I was watching that game at a bar, and whenever Bogey got the ball, man, it was pretty electric, man. So they just got to do a better job of understanding how to play with the lead, because they played really well, and I thought that if they could just continue playing the way they did, they'll have a great job winning the series. And then credit to the Sixers for not giving up, man. I mean, when you're down 20 in the third quarter, I was surprised Doc just didn't pull Joel and call it a day, because your best asset is vulnerable to an injury, vulnerable to aggravating, vulnerable to pretty much anything. So I think that playing him, keeping faith in the team, and building that belief and confidence going into game 2 that they can win any game no matter what the score is, sure, it might have been detrimental to his health, but the message that sends to the players, I think that's something that's really invaluable. The fact that they can come down and that they're not out of any game is a belief that is just incredible. Any team would be thriving off that idea and that belief. So I might have disagreed with the call at the time to keep Embiid in, but it paid off, and they got the game within 3 multiple occasions in the last 2 minutes.
They got to win, too.
I mean, it looks scary at times. I mean, how poorly the Hawks were handling that fourth quarter, because they were up at least well in the double digits during that fourth quarter. Many times. They were up 10 with like 2 minutes left. So I think that they just got to work on inbounding. Nate McMillan is going to be going into Hawks practice, and they're going to have 3 hours of inbound plays.
Just run the stack, man.
Run the stack. Because they were having three guys up top and 2 guys deep, kind of playing like a 3-2. But the Sixers were remaining up tight and pressing tight, and they were clamping.
That's where the length comes in. That's Simmons, Thybulle.
And Simmons playing the top of that defense, coming in and pinching whoever gets the ball, was really, really impressive. So I think Thybulle, you're going to see him have a bigger role coming up. Simmons is going to have a bigger role coming up. And they're going to try... I don't know how they're going to handle Trae Young. Are they going to let him cook, or are they going to try and isolate him? Because if you try to isolate Trae Young, I mean, you've got shooters. And that's a dangerous combo.
You got shooters and an all-time great facilitator, so that's gonna be tough.
Oh, one thing before we wrap up. Man, was that lob of John Collins impressive.
Oh my God, yes, dude. I had a near heart attack there. I'm like, what is he doing? And John Collins, Trey Young. I really hope John Collins doesn't leave. If you heard me like a month ago, or no, 3 months ago, I was ranting about how John Collins doesn't really fit, but he's found his role, he's found his niche, and they have been such a dynamic duo together. Pick and roll, pick and fade, kicking, alley oops, regardless. I think that we got to make it our priority to keep John because he's going to be an invaluable asset.
Yeah, but he's gonna ask for a lot of money.
Gonna ask for a lot of money, but playoff production is playoff production, and he's definitely solidified his value in that playoff production. So before we go to the Nuggets and Suns, which I think they're playing tonight, take a look at some of the comments or the chats that
I
we
saw that.
From Mita Sheth, first of all. I don't know who that is, but totally agree, guys. However, I feel like Julio was great for the city of Atlanta. Fantastic wide receiver. I'm sorry to see him go. Me too. I'm assuming Mrs. Sheth. Julio means a lot to me as a fan, means a lot to the city, and it's gonna be really awkward to see him in a new uniform, but we scammed him out of a Super Bowl. I want him to win a ring by the end of his career. He's a top 5 receiver of all time, in my opinion.
Don't know if that's gonna happen in Tennessee, but
I personally don't think it's gonna happen in Tennessee, but maybe one more stop in like Kansas City or
oh god, no. Oh yeah.
Basically, do what Darrelle Revis did. Join like New England.
Do what LaShawn McCoy did, man. Man's on a tear right now.
Yeah, if he goes for a three-peat, that'd be hilarious.
Wow.
Because LaShawn McCoy was a Hall of Famer before the rings, in my opinion.
And then he's picked up a ring last 2 years ago in Kansas City and picked him up last year at the Bucks. So we'll see if he can make it 3 in a row. If he can be the what's the guy for the Raptors that went to the Warrior guy went to the Raptors?
Oh, Patrick McCaw.
Patrick McCaw. Let's see if he can be a Patrick McCaw type player.
OG James Jones.
James.
He was on the Heat teams and the Cavs teams with LeBron. Got
Good
all
shout.
that shit, man. Logan Paul. Got a little flex here.
Got a big up Logan,
man.
He's our #1 fan.
Yeah, wait. It's got a little check there. Does that mean it's like the real Logan Paul? I don't think so.
Don't know.
I don't think so.
We're the official podcast of Logan Paul fans. We will be Logan Paul fans forever.
Bro, instead of Triple Threat, we're the Maverick podcast now. But it's the same profile picture as his actual YouTube.
It could be, man. It could be.
I'm trying to click on the profile right now on my laptop, but it won't let me do that.
We'll see though. We'll see. But anyways, we'll take it. I'll take it.
We'll definitely take it. And then Dylan Avalia del Rosario. Oh, it's a thumbs up. Cool. Thumbs up to you, man, for watching the pod and checking out our content. Hopefully you guys are subscribed because we're gonna be doing this a lot and we have some pretty exciting content.
And if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat. We'll answer everything that you put in there. Everything we want to talk about, you want us to talk about, we got you. So drop anything in there, and it'll be answered. It'll be answered on the pod.
Sure.
So let's break it down. Let's go into Nuggets Suns, right?
Nuggets Suns. The Nuggets, I'm gonna be honest with you, definitely look like the inferior team here, even with Jokic. They're able to squeeze past Portland, but Phoenix is a much better team. DeAndre Ayton is a big upgrade over Nurkic, Canner, and
Giles.
Oh, Harry Giles, yeah. And then the Nuggets, once again, they're missing Jamal Murray, who is their clear-cut second option, and then Will Barton, who has a lot of good two-way production. So that's definitely going to be tough because Phoenix is a top 5 offense, top 6 defense. So even though the Nuggets were 10th in opponent offensive rating, they were 23rd in opponent true shooting percentage, which means that if fine, the opponent doesn't score a lot of points, but they're getting a lot of good looks. And if there's one team that capitalizes off of good looks, it's Phoenix. And if there's one player that capitalizes off of good looks, it's Chris Paul. So they're going to have to do a lot of switching. They're going to have their wings in a lot. They're going to have to play some potentially smaller lineups with MPJ at the 4 because Mikal Bridges can shoot, Cam Payne can shoot, Cam Johnson can shoot, Jay Crowder can shoot, Devin Booker can shoot, Chris Paul can shoot.
It's go down the whole roster. They can all shoot. Even Aiden's not the worst.
Yeah. You know what, man? Just suit up Monty Williams. He can probably shoot from deep a little bit too.
Dude, I bet if you put Monty on this team, they'd probably still make it to the playoffs.
So, yeah, this is a very, very versatile, prototypical 3-and-D type team that you have in the Suns. And DeAndre Ayton, who, in my opinion, was their big X factor going into the season, has surpassed my expectations. He can score in the paint. He can be that pick and roll crutch for Chris Paul. He can defend now, which is very big, utilizing his frame and athleticism to lock up guys. So I think that Jokic will definitely have a harder time with Ayton. And then he can operate off of Devin Booker too. So this is a very well-rounded Suns team. The Nuggets are just undermatched, and I don't see anyone matching I don't really see anyone, even the Clippers or Jazz, beating Phoenix. I see this team as the third best team in the league and the best team in the West.
How do you see the Suns' game planning for Jokic? Because that's going to be the big X factor in this series. Because Jokic isn't just a scorer; he's arguably the best facilitator in the league, and certainly at his position.
Yeah, definitely best at his position. Top 3 to 5, in my opinion, behind Trae and Luka. So I think I sound like a broken record here, but allowing an offense to be heliocentric is probably your best bet in the modern NBA. When you have guys like MPJ, let me pull up the MPJ, Monte Morris, Austin Rivers, Campazzo, Aaron Gordon, Millsap, JaMychal Green. These are all guys that can score from the perimeter, but the Suns have that wing defense headlined by Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson to be able to neutralize that. So basically have a one-on-one with Ayton and Jokic. Ayton's in the paint trying to guard Jokic. See where that gets you. Jokic might drop 45, but have guys like MPJ have inefficient games. Have guys like Austin Rivers cold from the 3. Have guys like Aaron Gordon not play well. Campazzo, Green, Millsap, Morris. These are all crucial pieces on a very good Denver team that, if neutralized, doesn't matter how much Jokic gives you, if he can't find his guy, then that could easily lead to a bad pass, a turnover, and just high scoring from Jokic, but from no one else.
So I think it's going to be an interesting series. Game 1 is tonight, 10 o'clock, TNT. Definitely be tuning in for that one. And let's wrap it up. You have anything else to talk about today?
I don't think so. We'll definitely have some more content tomorrow after the Bucks game and after the Nuggets game tonight. And we'll even be doing some things like redrafts live, where we take the lottery of an NBA draft or even the first round of an NFL draft, and we redraft those picks. Those are always fun to do.
And the rankings are always fun as well.
Yeah, I've had a great time doing those. We'll have rankings. Now that the draft is approaching, this is definitely going to be the most fun draft to analyze for me and you. We got Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs, Scotty Barnes, Evan Mobley, all these guys that could be big game changers for the rest of the league. So I'm excited to work on that. We'll get content on the website up. We'll get some bonus stuff for the Patreon. But this is the summer of the triple threat.
And just remember, At this stage of the podcast, anything you say goes. If you want to see something, it'll happen. If you want to see a film analysis, if you want to see a certain player breakdown, you want to see a ranking, you want to see anything. If you want to see it, you have a question, it'll be answered. We'll give you 30 minutes. I mean, if you want to see something, we'll give it to you. So just make sure that if you want to see something on the Triple Threat podcast, just put it in the comment section, put it in the live, put it in the chat, and we'll get you covered.
Yeah, for sure. So, with that being said, I'm Ishan Cheth. Alongside me, as always, William Muzel. And we're signing off today. Peace.
Dude, Logan.